All right, feel the Knob Creek going through me.
Are you good? Are y'all warmed up there, Swanee?
I'm all warmed up.
Taxes.
Let's go, Chief.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I am your host, Perry, and Swan's with me this week. Hey, Swan.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, that Knob Creek really is working for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's doing great.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this week's episode. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. Listener Q&A, which is going to be fun. Not actually done this for a podcast before, just done it for the live streams that I do over on YouTube every Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. So I'm excited to see some of the questions that you guys had for us. And yeah, how you been, Swan?
Pretty good, man.
Yeah.
I got to meet some cool people last night. It was great.
Yeah.
Just meeting the people that listen to the show is fantastic.
Yeah, Todd Cooper and Joseph Brazo were over here last night. Joseph, of course, came all the way from Washington State. Very, very cool to get to see him. We spent a good amount of time drinking really good bourbon and smoking really good cigars and just having a blast, man.
Good conversation. I got to find that man I think of Booker Sip a while.
I think we might be able to do that.
We can work something out.
There's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance, Barry?
There's a chance. Yeah, but anyway, so we start every show out with a segment called Flying Blind, where I usually blind whoever else is on the show with a pour, but today, Swan has done that.
Oh, yeah. Brought something special.
The nose is like a caramel and oak bomb. Mm-hmm. It's very oaky on the nose.
This one has sat open for a little while, and it's definitely changed quite a bit.
Have I had this one before?
It's been a really long time if you've had it.
I mean, like I said a few weeks ago, we've had so much over the past couple of years that, you know, who's to say anymore?
Mm-hmm. The nose that I remember shows up on the palate.
There's a lot of tobacco on the nose as I go in for my first sip. Wow, that is butterscotch heavy.
There it is.
Woo,
it's the butterscotch.
Woo!
Do you like the tobacco more on the profile now that you're smoking cigars on a more regular basis?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And it wasn't that I was like, I didn't dislike it. I just didn't necessarily know what it was. Like, I could identify a general tobacco note, but it wasn't until like I did start smoking more cigars that I was able to pick up on it more.
I think for me it's weird because I've been in like barns and stuff where they've had drying tobacco, so that I like tobacco on the nose more than I do on the palate.
Yeah.
And it's just because I guess I'm so used to walking into that barn just full of drying tobacco and having that smell.
That is so much butterscotch.
It is. It's like a hard candy.
The finish is weird.
It's a little funky.
I don't remember. I kind of have an idea what it might be, but I don't remember.
So this one, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. It's,
go for
it's the Barter House Orphan Barrel.
Oh, the 20-year-old one.
20-year-old one, yeah. With the
Oh,
weird
man.
little fox guy on the front.
He's got a little top hat on.
Yeah. And
Or is that a bowler hat? Doesn't matter.
He's fancy. That's all we need to know.
He's fancy AF.
Yeah. But when we first had this, it was nothing but butterscotch. And it's opened
still,
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's opened up quite a bit, but I don't know if it's really, for the better, because I remember not having that kind of funky finish to it. Now it almost tastes like they're like, we're shooting for 20 years, but it might have been done at 17 and a half, like they really wanted that 20-year mark.
Yeah.
Which, good for them.
I think that the finish is what I'm picking up on is like a dry oak. Like there's not a whole lot of, I would say, pleasant notes on the finish. This one.
There's a reason why I've had it for almost 2.5 years now, and I still have half a bottle. It's not something I reach for. It's one of those that I honestly keep because they're like, what's the oldest thing you have? Because a lot of people that are new associate oldest with best. And that's not really, it's not always the case. Like,
No.
bourbon for me definitely has a sweet spot between like 8 to 15. Anything more than
Yeah.
that, it's like, it's just a little too much.
So it's funny. I feel like the more that I've been drinking bourbon, the lower my year preference has gone down, or my comfort level, I guess. You know, like it initially was like, man, it's got to be 8 years and up. You know.
Yeah.
But then it was like, you know, there's really great 7-year-old stuff out there. Oh man, there's some really great 6-year-old stuff out there. And then once it got to like 5 and 4, and seeing places like New Riff, you know, what they're doing with a 4-year-old product, I'm like, anything is possible at this point.
Yeah, and I think you also got to take into consideration when we were getting into bourbon, it was still the land of age statements a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
And so you saw the age 9 years on Knob Creek and the, aged however many years on a lot of these products. And then it just started going away. And we started getting into, well, how old is it? And they're like, well, technically it's 6 years. And you're like, 6 years, man. This used to be 9.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's blended with, 12-year-old product.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've kind of given up on like, I really need a definite age statement and know that it's old, because people are blending. They're making it what they want.
The only time that I think I like now am really kind of concerned with a proper age statement, the only one I can really think of is Knob Creek single barrels. You know?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that, I mean, they've gotten as high as like 14 and a half, 15 years old right now. But like, that's not to say that the younger stuff, I mean, there's still 9-year-old, 10-year-old barrels that are coming out. Those are still great. It's just there's this sweet spot right now with those older barrels that, I'm going to be honest with you, I seek them out. I want to have an older bottle of Knob Creek.
Yeah.
Single barrel.
13 and a half to like 15. It's a lot of them. The single barrels are coming out around there.
Yeah.
And they're phenomenal. I think the only thing that I'm concerned with as far as age goes is I need it to say straight bourbon whiskey. It's for me.
That's a good point too.
Yeah. I mean, I just knowing that it's got that 2-year designation and someone had enough patience to wait till it was a decent product, more than likely, I'm a little more comfortable with that. But if somebody hands me their new make and they're like, hey, you want to try this? I'm not going to say no. It's just not necessarily something I'm going to go pick up on the shelf.
Right. And I mean, there is always that chance of might not be that great.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some people that, you've tasted it and you're like, I mean, I know you aged it for 6 months, but this just tastes like new make. I mean, I'm a little confused. Did you just rinse it through the barrel? I mean, but there's some people that are also doing 6-month-year-old product like Stave and Barrel from the Glens Creek stuff. That's not bad.
Yeah,
it's definitely not bad.
Surprisingly good, I would say. But anyway, thanks for blinding me with this one, Swan. That was a fun little.
I gotta get you back,
little
man.
Palate warmer.
Gotta get you back.
As we get into the episode, well, before we really get into the episode, I gotta ask you, what have you been drinking recently?
Last night, everything.
Yeah, last night was kind of a blowout, wasn't it?
I had like probably, I don't know, half-ounce samples of like 8-9 different things.
Yeah.
Favorite thing from last night was between the Booker's 2019-2
Yeah.
and the Four Roses Limited Edition.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the that Russell's pick was up there for me too.
Russell's pick was definitely up there.
From the Bourbon Affair. Mm-hmm. Man, that's a good bottle.
Yeah, and I think it's also kind of hard, too, because I had such a variety of things yesterday. Like, looking at the Bardstown Bourbon Company stuff, it is so hard to compare that to anything that I had last night. It is wildly different than half the stuff that we tried. So it's, I don't know. Last night I had a lot of good bourbon. Let's just put it that way.
I'm gonna echo that. So I just got back yesterday from half of my vacations for the summer. We went up to Virginia, so of course I had to bring some bourbon with me. So I brought 101, some Special Reserve, Grandad 114. Let's see, what else? Four Roses Small Batch Select. And there was one more that I can't think of off the top of my head. But, that's kind of how I survived for a few days. survived, quote unquote.
Survived.
Yeah.
Put it in an IV bag. I need it.
Yeah. Last night, though, man. Oh, what a good time that was. We're at Joseph and Todd, again, thank you all so much. I feel like we're going to be talking about it for a while, too, and just going on and on about how much fun we had.
For sure.
So
Next year, we'll do it again.
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. Hey, do you want to try something you've never had and I've never had before?
Yes.
Okay. I have had this bottle sitting behind my bar for a while, and I forgot about it.
I want no information on it. I just want to try it.
Okay. You don't want to know proof or age or
Nothing.
anything? Not even the name?
All right, what's the name?
It's Colville?
Colville. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I won't tell you anything about it.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to pull up, since we're doing a Q&A, I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of the first questions off our Facebook group.
Yeah.
If you're not already on there, definitely join.
Yeah, just search This Is My Bourbon Group. And there are a couple questions up there now for you to answer in order to gain entry into the club. But, yeah.
All right.
It's a fun group.
All right, I'm going to read this one from Ian McMaster. What are you most excited about with bourbon coming up, whether it's a release or an event, or even something new happening at an established brand?
I'm always excited for Bourbon and Beyond. I'm really excited for Southern Whiskey Society this year. Bourbon on the Banks is going to be a great festival in Frankfurt, too. I don't know if we've made this public yet or not, but we're actually going to be there with the podcast. So we'll have a booth set up and everything. You get to come by and say hey, and we might have some merch and everything, but we'll talk about that a little bit closer to time. Honestly, this has felt like kind of a dead year for me in terms of new releases. There was the Four Roses Small Batch Select, which was fantastic. Weller Foolproof is going to be coming out here very soon. I mean, of course, I'm excited for that. The new E.H. Taylor, too. I've gotten to try both of those last two, and they're both really good. There's just not a whole lot that's on the calendar right now where I'm like, oh, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to echo that a little bit. I'm really excited if I have to pick one thing, Bourbon on the Banks.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's going to be great. And Perry said we'll get into it more later for sure, but I think I need more of what Four Roses did this year. They put out a release that's on the shelf, that's new, and it's good, and I was looking forward to it, and still, I'm picking up a bottle here pretty soon. Because a lot, like you mentioned, the dead year, a lot of the stuff that's come out this year has been so hard to get your hands on. It's hard to get excited about it. I mean, the Weller Foolproof, I'm chasing that one down, seems like weekly, and, I'm getting a no every time I turn around. So
yeah,
it's just one of those things where, maybe in 10 years after Buffalo Trace has hit their expansion and kind of gets a little more, stuff under their feet, they might be able to put it out at a rate that I can go just pick it up on the shelf. But for right now, it's just not there. So
yeah, and I think that talking about stuff like, each year's limited releases, that kind of goes without saying, the Antique Collection, the Four Roses limited edition. I mean, I'm excited for all of that. It's just,
You know what I'm excited for? And this is thanks to Adam Terry. I'm excited for Wilderness Trail picks.
Oh, heck yeah. Yes.
I'm excited for those because their standard release is good. And I actually got to try the second release that they did of their rye bourbon.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit different and in a good way. I like it.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
There's definitely some variance between the batches. And I'm definitely looking forward to that, especially when people get to do their own picks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to picks of that too. I've not knowing, what is on the other side of that, just in terms of, what they could possibly even be like. I mean, that's exciting for me. I'm looking forward to kind of this uncharted territory of picks from a new distillery that, we've had really a good time with so far.
Mm-hmm. I'd love for them to put out a pick and kind of do what Knob Creek does, where they allow it to be more of a cask strength, higher proof release.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. I mean, I know they'd have to drop the bottled and bond designation. I wouldn't be that mad.
I wouldn't either.
Not at all.
I mean, look at the success that New Riff has had with it.
Yeah, they've done great. I mean, that's one of the best new selection programs out there. I mean, I see people post pictures from it all the time.
Well, thank you, Ian, for that question. I'll do one now.
Go for it.
Here's from Clifton. Advice for finding Dusties: should I be looking in small liquor stores or asking the employees? I've not ever really found too many Dusties in the wild. Most of my Dusty buying has been on secondary market.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to recommend getting something that's, I mean, we're going to call it Dusty. You're looking at stuff that's either been discontinued, really, or just stuff that's sit on the shelf and the label's changed. If you're looking for that kind of stuff, go to liquor stores that people don't shop too often. I mean, if you're looking at it and you're like, well, this is a liquor store, but it's attached to a gas station. It's also a drive-through, and it looks like they mostly just sell cigarettes, but you go in there and they've got an older Booker's or something like that. It might be worth picking up. I mean, just going to those places that nobody goes to, or even going into some place that typically runs higher prices, maybe you might find something that, even though it's higher priced, it might be worth it to you because it's older.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to not just look for the higher end stuff. Mm-hmm. It's always nice finding, older bottles of 101 on the shelf. If you just happen to luck into finding an age-dated Elijah Craig, that's always a nice treat too.
Yeah, old age-dated Knob Creek.
Yeah,
a couple of those.
So don't limit yourself to the high-end stuff. I mean, look for everything. I would say. I just had a sip of this.
I'm still nosing it, and I'm a little scared, if I'm honest.
It smells like dark chocolate on the nose. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really taste like it. Tastes kind of like a piece of juicy fruit chewing gum.
Yeah, I get that. It's like as it's going down your throat, it's definitely fruity.
Yeah.
There was this like dumb candy store in the mall. I'm pretty sure every mall has one. And they had chocolate-covered gummy bears one time, which sounds terrible. It's because it is. It's pretty bad. That's this.
Yeah,
it's
this is
just
no good.
Strange.
I do not like this.
No, let's finish this quickly.
Yeah. So, again, this is called Colville. It's 5 years old. It's 86 proof. I got this from the Walmart liquor store.
Okay, does Walmart do returns? No, I'm just kidding. No.
Not on liquor.
Not on liquor.
Unfortunately. But, yeah, this is not my favorite thing I've ever had. Yeah, let's move on to something else, please.
Yeah, there's some certain things, too, that when I have them and they're bad, I immediately think, this is just not my palate. This is for somebody else. I don't know anyone who's looking for this, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither. Do you want to venture into the wild blue yonder and crack something else, maybe?
Yeah, so going back to what Clifton said, I think this would be a great nod to that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know what? I think I might have opened this before. Yep, I have. This is just the 80 proof Old Bardstown bourbon. It's an older bottle. I had never seen this bottle before I found it. And there's just this store in Frankfurt that has a big sign out front that says whiskey
And nothing else.
Nothing else. I don't even know the name of the store.
It's called Moore's Point.
How would I have known that?
It's on the sign, but it's like easily, I don't know,
There's a
100th of the
sign?
size of the text of whiskey. And it's funny too, because if I'm thinking of the same place, you literally walk in and there's just an entire bar, and behind the bar,
yeah, there is.
Yeah, they just happen to have like, it's definitely not just like a back bar. It's just a whiskey, shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, hey, what's the price on this? What's the price on that? And they'll sell it to you, but you got to ask.
And there's not really that much there to choose from either. I mean, it was just kind of by luck that I walked in and this was there. I mean, everything else is just kind of like the standard offering, but I was just happy to, walk away with something at that point.
Yeah, the weird place out in the middle of nowhere that I introduced you to?
Oh, yeah.
The guy owns both of these. Both those
No
stores.
kidding.
Yeah.
I can totally see that.
Yeah. It's
That
strange.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah. He owns both of them. So this one, you said it's 80 proof?
Yes.
We've got another question that actually mentions 80 proofs.
Okay, go for it.
So this one's from Darren Wright. It says, if you could only drink an 80 proof bourbon, what would it be?
Oh, this is a thinker.
Yeah.
Does it have to be? How do you interpret this? Does it have to be like a standard offering that's out right now?
I would just say, since he didn't specify, I would just put 80 proof that you can. It's got to be available, I would assume. Because, I mean, if you're going to drink it for the rest of eternity, and that's the only thing you've got, you got to be able to buy more than one bottle.
Jim Beam White Label. Honestly, I know that's kind of a generic answer, but it's not a bad bottle. It is bourbon. It is a very standard pour that has a lot of good stuff going on.
I think I would go with Ancient Age 80.
Yeah. I could see that. I'm more of a fan of the 90 proof than I am the 80 proof.
I mean, yeah, me too. But, I mean, if I had to, I'd try to think of it more of just 90 proof with an ice cube in it.
Sure.
But it's I'd be happy with that. I tried the old Charter, the 80 proof that they put out. It is not great.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
Not good. Definitely not as good as the 101.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It's
a
definitely
great bottle.
It is. It's good stuff. But no, it's not great. And I was trying to think of something else. And I mean, Basil Hayden.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we talk about ones we wouldn't?
Yeah, Basil Hayden.
Basil Hayden's my number one. Would not want to have to drink.
I would get so tired of that so fast.
I get tired of it after one sip.
Yeah.
It just is watered down bourbon.
Mm-hmm. I could see maybe doing some of their other releases. I think the best one I've had from theirs is they had just a standard rye release that they did. And it was okay. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm still trying to drink bourbon instead of rye.
Mm-hmm. Are there any 80 proof ryes out there? I can't think of a one.
Not that I know of. Not standard offering. I mean, you got closest would probably be Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
81.
We'll probably have already looked it up by the time this episode comes out, but if not, let us know on Twitter at My Bourbon Pod.
Yeah, this whole podcast is about engagement, so
yeah,
hit
no
us up
kidding,
for sure.
No kidding. This is a pretty good pour, honestly, for 80 proof. I don't have anything bad to say it other than I wish that it were a little bit more flavorful, but it just I see the hints of everything there. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't quite deliver in the way that it could.
This is actually pretty good. And this is Old Bardstown.
Yes.
Is that Willet?
At that point, I'm not sure what it was.
It says Bardstown, so it can't be too bad, but I do like it.
Yeah, I think I like it a little bit better than the old Bardstown stuff that's coming out of Willet right now, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, I can definitely get behind that. Willet has been so hit or miss.
Uh-huh.
I mean, for standard offerings, it seems like every bottle you get is wildly different.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Chad and Sarah have talked about their Noah's Mill experience where they got like a honey bottle and just never got close to that again. And I had the exact same experience.
Yeah. I it wasn't that extreme for me, but it was to the point where I was like, I don't think I'm going to be okay not buying this bottle again.
Mm-hmm.
So, my next question from over on Instagram is from my_drinking hobby. In your opinion, what bottles are worth paying full secondary pricing?
Elijah Craig Barrel Proof.
Yeah.
Because I'm full secondary, 120 for the newer releases, up to like 250 for the old ones. I think it's worth it.
I think it is,
yeah.
too. It's kind of... I think that there is a good debate to be had about that. This might not be the episode for it. Maybe we'll do a secondary episode sometime in the future. But this is... this is a really interesting climate that we're in for secondary pricing, wherein there aren't a whole lot of bottles that are worth the price that you're going to be paying for them on secondary. I can't fathom paying what some people do for a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle or for the antique collection. I'll tell you what is worth it, though. And it's not always the best way to go about it, but maybe find a group that does fireballs. So, you're basically splitting up a bottle in terms of price, not like, one person gets it and then everybody gets a little bit of it. You're splitting up the price a tenth of the way. And I think that's a great way to, to approach it. I mean, like I won a bottle of Kentucky Owl confiscated for like $40.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's definitely not bad. There's some risk involved, but it's nice when you do win.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And then I think if I had to pick another, that would probably be worth it. Most people charge, relatively okay amounts for the Blanton's straight from the barrel.
oh yeah.
Some of it's not too bad. And then probably like your classic, which would be the late 2000s, early 2010s Wild Turkey. Some of those are decently priced.
Yeah, some of the pre-fire Heaven Hills.
Yeah.
Too.
Especially like the small ones, like 375s
Like
of
what
it and stuff and pints.
I've got a majority of.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your next question, Swan?
This one's from Monica.
Monica.
Good old Monica. Top 3 bourbons every restaurant should have, but most don't. So I would argue that the staples for most restaurants would be Woodford and Makers.
Woodford Maker's Jim Beam.
Woodford, Makers, Jim Beam. I think those are the staples.
101? Probably. That's a good question. Knob Creek Small Batch. And I would, if we're talking in terms of like, say you want a weeder, I would probably replace Makers with Larceny.
Yeah, Larceny was on my list.
Yeah, more on Larceny later, by the way.
Yeah, no, Larceny was definitely on my list. And so was Wild Turkey. If I had to come up with some different ones, Four Roses Small Batch, I think would be a good one. Elijah Craig would be a great one.
Yeah.
And then I'd say Buffalo Trace, but honestly, that's kind of hard because it's difficult to get everywhere.
A couple years ago, I might have said Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
But now, not so much.
I'd probably go with Russell's. I mean, I know it's up there, but I mean, split across, the 16 pours or so that are in there, I think Russell's would be a good one. It's just an introduction. I mean, I would go 101, obviously, but I don't want to repeat what you said. But I definitely think Wild Turkey's got to be on there in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe Rare Breed. I could see Rare Breed being on there. Just because it's there, I'm sure there's somebody that's looking for something strong, so that when they put ice in it, it dilutes down to something still, a little rough comparatively.
And I mean, like, we could throw Old Granddad 114 into that mix as well. Even a Knob Creek single barrel at 120 proof.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, we went to that one restaurant, Cuvillon in Louisville, and we ordered one pour of Old Granddad 114. They're like, nope, that's it. That's all we got. No more. And I'm like, really?
Sad.
I would have been drinking that all night. Like,
guess it's on to the 101.
Which I think we cleaned him out of.
More than likely, between us, Tammy, Monica, Brian.
Yeah, we put a dent in a Wild Turkey handle for sure.
Indeed. Yeah. We are pouring Knob Creek Cast Strength Rye as we move on to our next question, which comes from SoCal Tomato Guy over on Instagram. He said, "What's your best guess in years on the bourbon boom bust? -7. I don't know anymore if it's actually going to happen. I'll be really honest with you.
I think it'll happen, and I think if they move on to the next spirit, it's probably going to be gin.
Gin or rum.
Gin or rum,
I would say.
And the only reason I would think gin is just because of it seems like every distillery now when they open is making a craft gin. Or something along those lines. I mean, even rum. I mean, two examples, like Castle and Key making their gin. It's a bourbon drinker's gin. It just seems like an easy transition. So you've got all these people that are, raving over aged spirits and they need something new. Gin's going to be a little bit cheaper and more accessible and easy for new startups and stuff to make. And if you're looking at rum, I mean, we go on and on about Wilderness Trail and we love them so much. They started out making a rum.
Yeah.
They did a sorghum rum, which is admittedly, I'm not a huge rum fan. I do like molasses cookies, and it is 100% molasses cookies. It's not everyone's thing though.
Yeah.
But it is good, and it's a little hot. But it's still good. So I could see it moving to that. I think going on Perry's point that it might not really go away, we've moved to finishing stuff so often. It seems like every distillery is doing a finished thing. So if you were saying like bourbon's going to go away and the next thing that's going to happen is going to be a wine, well, I mean,
It wouldn't surprise me.
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But at the same time, with the versatility that they have using wine barrels now just in the bourbon industry, I can definitely see people just saying, no, these things can coexist in a boom. Like they can both be popular.
Yeah, for sure. I want to echo that too. I mean, it just seems like there's this give and take in some instances where it's like, because bourbon is popular, cigars are coming back into fashion too. And so, it's all cyclical. Bourbon probably will have a point in time where it's not as popular again. But I think that looking at how the market has been growing and the fact that we're always getting, not always, but we're getting new whiskey drinkers, new bourbon drinkers all the time. I think there's more room for growth than there is the opposite.
I could see that. I hope it doesn't decline. I know that. I hope it declines for the reason that I want to see BTAC on the shelf. I don't want it to decline because I know
selfish reasons.
Yeah, I know the innovation would go away as well if they did that. Like I would see, less Masters Keeps, less new, releases from Buffalo Trace. I mean, it would hurt a little bit, but I might be able to find Pappy.
Yeah,
at a reasonable price.
Yeah,
the secondary market might disappear. People might hold Wild Turkey on their shelf until it actually gets dusty.
What's your next question there, Swan?
All right. This one's from Steven Sussman. Best summer bourbon or rye cocktails? So this one I wanted to ask myself because I'm not very well versed in cocktails. I pretty much just drink straight bourbon. Even if it's 90 degrees outside like it is right now, I'm going to drink straight bourbon.
I was at the pool this past weekend and drinking Turkey 101. I like doing, it's really simple. Just bourbon and lemonade. It's a great summer drink.
Yeah.
I used to do this, it's kind of a Kentucky specific thing, but I would do bourbon in ale 8, and I would throw in a little bit of orange liqueur in there too, so it just had a little pop of extra flavor. So good, man. I haven't done that in a long time. Might have to get into some of that here in a little bit.
So for anybody outside of Kentucky, ale 8's pretty much ginger ale, but with like an extra punch.
It's got more flavor to it.
Yeah, it's got more flavor. So if you wanted to make your own, just get some ginger ale, and everyone's got their favorite. So pick that up, and orange liqueur, is that what you said you put in there?
Yes.
I might have to try that because I like orange. That'd be good.
I'm telling you, man, it is a great combination of flavors, and I think that in terms of cocktails, you want to go a little bit lighter. Don't get me wrong, I love a good Eli Mason Old Fashioned when it's, well, really any time of year, but it's such an easy way to create your own cocktail and everything. As far as like bourbon and rye cocktails, bourbon and rye aren't necessarily built for being a summer drink. I would think more of like a mojito or something, or some kind of tequila based drink or rum during the summer.
I think for me, if I were gonna just say that I like a cocktail that I could have during the summer, it would literally just be anything that's tropical and has ice in it. Yeah. So if you could put anything, in there to kind of do that, like pineapple juice, I know people use in cocktails a lot. Anything I could find with that kind of flavoring to it and was also cold, I would do it. Because the biggest thing with bourbon for me is you start drinking and you get hot, but on top of it, I drink it room temperature. So I'm not doing myself
refreshing.
I'm not doing myself any favors here in the refreshment department.
No.
But I think I'm gonna definitely try your ale 8 and bourbon mixture because I've never done it with the orange liqueur in it.
It again just adds enough to it where it makes it real nice.
All right, so speaking of ryes.
This is a good rye. It's got a lot on the back end, a lot of heat on the back end. It doesn't necessarily have some of the more rye qualities that a rye whiskey does. It kind of drinks a little bit more like a bourbon than it does a rye.
See, for me, it's got a really heavy rye nose. But then the palate is definitely more of a bourbon.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And we reviewed this, or I reviewed this with Iverson forever ago at this point. So go back and listen to those thoughts there. But, I think that, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's a really good rye nose, but the palate just doesn't quite deliver what I would expect from a rye whiskey.
I do like it, though.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
I wish this was a standard offering. Because I've had their single barrel ryes that I think they're like, 115?
Something like that.
Yeah. This is better.
Yeah, this is 119 proof.
Yeah. So it's either it's the extra 4 points or whoever decided to batch this. It's good stuff.
So my next question, I think, deserves a little bit of an explanation because this is in reference to my April Fool's joke. Jake asked, "Why is the podcast moving towards vodka in the future? I figured it would be rum." It was my April Fool's joke, was that it was turning into this My Vodka podcast, which was one of that is my best April Fool's joke I've ever done.
Yeah, because I woke up and it was like the first thing that I saw, and I'm like, what? I'm not drinking vodka tonight, man.
I confused Swan with that.
Yeah,
like that was a win for me.
It was one of those things too where I realized the date and I was looking at it and I'm like, I don't want to ask because it's gonna make me look dumb. But like, I really hope I don't have to drink vodka tonight. And the stuff in the glass is green, and I don't want this for myself.
I don't want this. Yeah, it was my April Fool's joke this year, and I was pretty proud of myself for it. More proud of myself than I think I'm allowed to be. Yeah. What you got over there, Swanee?
All right, so this one's from Eric Black, and it says, "What are your takes on whiskey rocks versus ice versus whiskey discs?"
I do not like whiskey rocks.
I've tried it.
They taste so bad.
I know that there should be absolutely no flavor that comes off these things.
They taste bad.
It feels like I infused my bourbon with a granite countertop.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
It's just the strangest thing.
It's nasty.
Yeah, they do work, but if I were going to do anything, I would just chill my whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point, at least it's not in contact with anything, and it's not going to get watered down.
I just don't like watered down bourbon.
No, I
just
don't either.
don't. I mean, I'm not trying to be elitist. It's just, I don't like the flavor of a bourbon that's had an ice cube melt in it.
Yeah, and just like what Freddie said, best way to drink bourbon is the way you like to drink it.
Exactly.
So if it's not our thing, that's perfectly fine. If you like to take an entire ice ball and shove it down in your drink, great.
Yep.
That's your preference.
And I mean, that's not to say that I didn't do that for a long time. I mean, like I did spend a lot of time drinking bourbon with a whiskey ball. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, an ice ball in there.
Yeah, and I had whiskey mixed with Coke for way too long, but it's the way I enjoyed it, and it didn't matter what I got. I could get Elijah Craig. This is going to kill you a little bit. So the Elijah Craig barrel proof that I got.
I know this story.
I mixed it with Coke.
I know
because it was too strong. I mean, looking back on it, I would kill myself. Like, what are you... Stop. I want to go back and strangle myself like Homer strangles Bart Simpson. I mean, it's just terrible. But at the same time, that's how I like to drink it at that time. And I'm not super upset with that. Yeah. That's perfectly fine. So if you like to drink it with, the whiskey rocks, that's how. But
that's fine. But it just, like, for me, it just adds this unsavory flavor that I just can't get past. I want to taste my whiskey. I want to taste my bourbon.
Yeah.
You know, and if I've got something standing in the way of it, like an additive, an unintended additive, it's ruined my experience with it. So I say no to the whiskey rocks. Mostly no to the whiskey discs. Absolutely not to ice cubes. But if you're gonna go with ice, go with the ice balls.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Oh, so get this.
Here we go.
Story time. You ready? Putting the glass down.
Old
We're going
Poppy
here.
Van Winkle.
Literally. So, yeah. So here's the thing. I'm big on. I don't really keep a whole lot of my better bottles. I like to give them to Chad and Perry because I know that they make content with them and other people can enjoy them more than I would just at my house. So this was the one that I kept for myself. The first year that I started collecting bourbon, I got a 12-year Van Winkle Lot B. And then I also got a 107, sold the 107 to Chad because I figured he could do something with it. And I kept the Lot B, and I was like, when am I going to open this? When am I going to open this? And, of course, I went on a tour with Freddie, and he basically just said, open it when you've got people to enjoy it with. And I'm like, cool. So I took it to Thanksgiving or Christmas, one of the two, and I opened it up, and I poured all my stepbrothers some of it. And my stepbrother Brent, I love you, don't get me wrong, but he put chipped ice in with Lot B.
Oh, no.
And I'm not talking a little bit. I'm talking like he had an entire Sonic slushie with no flavoring and decided it's going to be Lot B flavored.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, this is killing me inside. And the whole time I'm looking at it and I'm like, enjoy it the way you like to drink it. Enjoy it the way you like to drink it. Don't say anything.
Well, so that first year where I really started getting into it as well, I also got a Lot B. And I was like, I got to share this around, you know. And I mean, that's just my nature. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I get a good... I mean, that's why my George T. Stagg is so low. It's because I want other people to try it. I'm not going to hoard it for myself or anything. It just... I get into this mindset of, I've got it. Other people are going to enjoy it too.
Yeah.
So I brought my Lot B around to Christmas with my family. And I was all excited about it. You know, I'm pouring a little bit for everybody. And I pour some for my brother. He just shoots it. Just knocks it back. I'm like, Dane, what are you doing? And he was like, what? I was like, you just shot Van Winkle. And he's like, I didn't know.
Nothing says college kid like you bringing out a special bottle at Christmas and him shooting it.
At least he wasn't like chugging straight from the bottle.
Yeah, no.
That would have been worse.
It's painful though, because you do kind of fall into the category of like, well, this is how it's meant to be enjoyed because this is how I like to enjoy it. Unfortunately, I hit that point quite a bit. So when I hand somebody, you know, some nice bourbon and it's definitely 2 to 3 sips and it's gone after the first one, I'm sitting there like, you really did that. But at the same time, like, they got the flavor, you know, they tried it, and if they ever want to go back and appreciate it, it'll probably be there, you know.
Yeah. My next question is from Kevin, also known as Chauncey's dad over on Instagram. He asks, where will the new Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond fit into your bourbon portfolio?
So let me couple this with a question that Adam also had.
Okay.
And it said, thoughts on the new Heaven Hill bottled and bond. So
yeah,
obviously they want to hear about it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is coming out the week after the news actually dropped, but this will be the first time that we've kind of put our thoughts down for people to hear. I think I'm just going to straight up say I'm excited for this. Mm-hmm. I really am. I know that everybody has, not everybody, but a lot of people have a problem with the fact that it's now 1 year older than the old Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond 6-year that, you know, got taken away last year and is now 3 times the price. I get that. I totally understand that. But I think that what we're seeing now is a precedent being set for semi-premium whiskeys with an age statement. You know, yes, this is from the same company that put out a 12-year-old product for under $25 for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we really are seeing a tonal shift in the way that bourbon is marketed and the way that bourbon is sold to consumers. And I understand. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. 7 years old, one distilling season, 100 proof. It just makes sense that it's priced where it is. Yes, you can get Old Ezra 7-year barrel strength for about the same money. Yes, you can get Rare Breed for about the same money. But you have to understand too. This is the same argument I make for paying artists or musicians a fair wage. You have to understand the amount of time and the amount of craft that has gone into creating this. Bottled and bond whiskeys are not easy to make.
No.
They are very, very regulated by nature. So, yeah, I understand why it's why it is priced where it is. It makes sense to me. Am I the happiest guy in the world about it? No, absolutely not. Because yeah, $40 isn't just pocket change. You know, I will still, when the time comes and once it becomes part of our everyday market, yeah, I'm still going to stand there and I'm going to debate. Do I want a bottle of Rare Breed or do I want a bottle of 7-year Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond today? You know, I mean, there is, I fall so weirdly on this spectrum where I'm excited for it, but I understand why other people aren't. And I can kind of foresee how I am going to react to it in the future. But my thesis, I guess, if I had to have one, is I'm excited for it, but.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, it's just going to come down to how it tastes. I mean, I think everyone's big argument is, yeah, but if you compare it to blank, and great, yeah, if you look at their portfolio, it's maybe not the best priced item they've got there.
Well, sure.
But if you compare it to New Riff, Bottled and Bond, it's not bad.
Yeah, and if you listen to a couple weeks ago where I was talking with Dixon about trying to break that mentality of it's good but, or it's good but it's not this. Mm-hmm. You know, that is not an easy thing to break yourself of.
I'm guilty of it.
No, I am too.
Yeah.
And I think that this is going to be an interesting challenge for those of us who have that issue when talking about whiskeys. And again, this is a tonal change for the bourbon market. I fully believe it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to realize that really the only way I should be judging this is after I buy it once, try it, and think, is this bottle worth $40? That should be the only really way that I judge it. But, I mean, preemptively, and this is just like when you see movie trailers, you tear them to shreds on everything that you can because that's just your natural instinct. I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, why on earth would I pay that if I can get a 10-year-old Henry McKenna Bottled and Bond single barrel for, $35-$40?
You watch though. Henry McKenna will go up in price.
Yeah, I totally believe it.
It's got to go. If they are going to match this price hike, there is no way that Henry McKenna will not go up to $50.
No, I totally believe it. That it'll probably get a new bottle, a new design, and probably an extra $20 to $30 slapped to it.
Yep.
I mean, it's
inevitable.
It's inevitable, and honestly, I'm okay with it just because I know that that's probably going to put it on the shelves more. And there's plenty of Henry McKenna 10 years that I've had where I was like, this is a $70 bourbon. There's also plenty I've had where it's appropriately priced. I mean, it's hit or miss. Just like anytime you pick up a single barrel from a store. I mean, there's plenty of Knob Creek picks that I've had where I'm just like, well, this is worth the $45 to $50 I paid for it. And there's also some where I picked it up and I was like, I'd have this almost next to BTAC. This is crazy.
So let me ask you this: we agree that Henry McKenna is going to be more expensive here soon.
I feel like it has to be. I feel like their entire thing is going to probably, their whole platform's probably going to go up to
Right.
match. I mean, what are the two that you feel like are appropriately priced for the market? Right now, it'd probably be the decanter style old Fitz and this new 7-year are kind of aligned with everyone else's pricing. And I think the reason we're upset is because they've not aligned with anybody else's pricing before.
So my question, though, is assuming that the Henry McKenna price hike is inevitable, going from MSRP of about 30 to about 50. Again, this is speculation.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still willing to pay $50 for Henry McKenna bottled and bond?
Yeah.
So in turn, would you then be willing to pay $40 for Heaven Hill bottled and bond?
Yeah, I would be.
Yeah. Here's where I get a little bit tripped up in the pricing strategy. And I think that, well, okay. All of the old Fitz releases that have come out over the past year and a half now, the decanter style bottles, those have been priced per year. So like the 13-year that just came out this spring is $130. The 9-year-old was $90, So is it just because of the bottle itself that it's coming in that it's being priced $10 per year? Or is this some vacuum of pricing that we're not privy to? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I know with the old Fitz, you've also got to take into account the rarity of it because you can't just walk in and pick it up off the shelf.
No.
Yeah, I mean, if you did, that'd be insane. But I'm not 100% on the pricing on that stuff. I do know that the secondary stuff. I mean, I've seen some that are running $250 for the 13-year.
Yeah,
that's insane. I wouldn't pay that. But I mean, 7-year-old bottled and bond whiskey, put it up against New Riff as far as like stuff like that. It's worth it. Put it up against Wilderness Trail. It's worth it. It's when you start comparing it to, large distilleries and their current trend of pricing that it kind of falls apart. But again, it really, for me, it should just be based on me trying it and thinking, would I pay $40 for this?
You bring up a good point, though, that I hadn't even considered. You can get New Riff bottled and bond for $40.
Yeah.
Which is 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're going to have a competing whiskey that's 7 years old, also bottled and bond, for the exact same price. I'm interested to see how that is going to play out in the market come October. Maybe that, they're doing something really specific and really interesting by, not releasing it in Kentucky at first. I hate that they're not releasing it in Kentucky. I understand why they're doing it, but
I mean, I think it's genius if you look at it, because then if we had it and we're immediately comparing it to the $12 bottom shelf that we used to love, and we're thinking, why on earth would I pay for this? But then we start reading reviews online from everyone else saying this is the bourbon of the year. We're going to think, forget the price, man. I'm picking it up regardless. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to pay $40 for that.
Yeah.
Heck, you'll end up seeing it on secondary going for $55, $60 just because they can get it and we don't have it yet.
Yeah. Gosh, I have a lot of this bottle left. Sorry, changing conversation. I just opened up a New Riff single barrel that I kind of forgot I had. And it's mostly full. I don't think I liked this when I first had it.
Really?
Yeah.
I've actually not been a huge fan of some of the New Riff single barrels.
This is the only one that I've had where I was iffy on it. Everything else I've been over the moon about. So.
I thought, looking back on it now, I'd have to go listen to what I said, but the one with the Patrick Star on the back of it, I thought it was just okay.
That was the bottled and bond, right?
No, that was a single barrel pick.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did we review that on the show with Chad?
I'm not sure. I think it was with Kurt. But either way, it was just kind of iffy. I've had another one that I picked up that I think was a, I want to say it was an Ernie's pick.
Oh, Patrick Star?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just okay. I mean, I've not been a huge fan of it. I do think they're good. I think it's just one of those things where 2 to 3 years from now they're gonna be putting out better product, and it could have just been that I got a bad one, or it didn't align with what I wanted, or that I liked the regular release so well that took a step in the different direction.
That's a real shame because I loved Patrick Star.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Now, if we're just talking about the lovely little like
the
pink
sticker that was on the back.
Yeah, the sticker, A plus, A plus. Patrick Star is a character, and he deserves fame. But no, I just looking
I
at the
thought it was a
whiskey.
great pick. I thought it was really good. I
don't
did.
know. I mean, New Riff for me has been good. I honestly started enjoying their rye almost more than their standard release. I really like the rye.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Not to say that anything that they've been putting out is bad, but it just seems like the rye is kind of a step above.
Yeah, I think it is too that there's a product of the rye that it doesn't take near as long to age, and so that 4-year mark is a lot more substantial to the flavor profile than maybe the 4-year mark is to bourbon.
This smells like a King's Hawaiian roll.
Yes. It does. I can't. That is so dead on.
It's a King's Hawaiian roll.
That is so weird.
Chad, I'm coming for you.
That's all I ever wanted.
Yeah.
I hope the palate stands up, but like, oh man.
The palate stands up.
It stands up. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
What's the proof on this?
This is 113.6, I believe.
It does not drink like that.
Oh no, it drinks like it's a 96 proof or 95.
Yeah, this is around 100 max.
Yeah. It was distilled on my dad's birthday in 2014.
All right. Happy birthday, Dad.
Oh yeah, your dad too.
Yeah. It's so strange. I like this better than I think the Patrick Star that I remember, but it's very, very like honeyed and viscous feeling
Yeah.
for a 4-year. That's nuts.
So I think that I bought this the same day that I bought the Patrick Star. Mm-hmm. And the reason I mean, like I just said, I loved the Patrick Star pick. I think what it was is that I was comparing the two of them side by side. And because I loved Patrick Star so much, I was like, I don't know about this one. This one, though, now is so good. Mm-hmm. It tastes like a King's Hawaiian roll.
It's pretty impressive.
I'm so happy with this.
This has changed my perspective a little bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I want you to try this other one, too, that I have on the table before you leave then.
Try more bourbon? Yes.
Heck
Yes, please.
Yeah. Because this is the one that got me back and excited for a new riff.
Okay.
Not that I didn't, love it already, and not that I didn't love the rye, but like, this one just has something special to it. So anyway, back to questions. Are you up?
I think it's you this time.
Is it? No,
Yeah,
I just asked the question about the Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. I've got another one from Ian.
Go for it.
What person, doesn't matter who it is, would you like to share bourbon with that you have not done already, and why?
I'd love to sit down with Jimmy Russell.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to have sat down with Booker No. Yeah, I mean, like when you talk about like some of the greats, I mean, that's kind of an obvious thing. I don't want to get too touchy-feely, I would say. But my grandfather was a Scotch drinker, and I always, I accepted bourbon more than I did Scotch originally, of course, but
Yeah.
he passed away before I really got into bourbon. And not that he was a big bourbon drinker, but I would have loved to have come to him and said, "Hey, this is a great bottle. Let's share it." That's something that I didn't get the chance to do, and I wish that I could have done that. And again, I'm not trying to get too emotional or anything about it, but it's one of those things where I just wish that I had that opportunity before he passed away, and I didn't. But
Yeah. I would have loved to share a drink with my grandfather. I actually never met either of them, but I know the one on my mom's side, he was a vodka drinker and a bourbon drinker. So from my understanding, he was he was big on the Perry pours, but at like 8 a.m. in the morning.
oh, good.
Yeah, so him and the Travarsky got real close at about 8 a.m. before he went out into the fields. But it would have just been nice to have met him and stuff and hang out with him and have a drink. So I'm right there with you. I think if I had to pick somebody that and this is not necessarily, I guess, somebody you would think that it was one of the greats and I'd love to have a drink with him. Caleb Kilburn.
Oh, heck yeah.
Peerless.
Oh my gosh, I would love to sit down with Caleb sometime.
I think that would be great.
Just to get him on the show.
He's in our age range, in our wheelhouse, and I'd love to, because I love when we had this stuff with Marianne Barnes, and I just think that'd be interesting to relate to somebody not only by the bourbon aspect, but also just by general. You grew up in the same time period, and
I watched Rugrats.
Yeah. I had the orange VHS. I know what you're talking about.
That was the first movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Reptar's Revenge, great. But I think it'd be neat. And plus, he just put out that new bourbon, and that'd be cool to talk about and go through.
Yeah, we need to get Caleb on and talk about all that and everything, and we'll make that happen sometime soon. All right, my turn. This is also from Kevin, or Chauncey's dad. Has bourbon peaked? What will be the clearest signal that bourbon has jumped the shark?
For me, if I had to think that, I don't think it's peaked. I definitely don't think it's peaked.
Nah, I don't think it has either.
If I had to pick when I think it would jump is when you start to see, at least for me working in a liquor store on occasion, when I start to see people stop coming in and asking for specific bottles that I know we don't have, but they're asking for vodka or some other spirit, and I'm looking at them like, no, we don't have it. Wait till truck day. I'm going to be like, oh, snap. Bourbon's going down. Because as it is right now, when you work in a liquor store, there's two things you can expect for sure. It's that there will be people there on truck day that come in with their hands in their pockets, look around for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then come up to the front desk and say, hey, man, did you get anything special in today? And I'm just like, nope, nothing at all. And then they'll be like, oh, okay. And then they'll talk to you for a second and kind of butter you up a little bit. And then they'll be like, well, I'll see you next week. And you're like, yeah, I'll see you again. And they come back in. I'm that guy, by the way. I hate it, but I love it at the same time.
You are my bourbon finder, so.
Yeah, and then there's also the people that call and or come in and they just immediately look at you and they're like, hey, do you have any Weller, Pappy, Eagle Rare, blah, 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 blah. Just keep going on and on and on. And you're just looking at them like, nope. But I got this pick.
But I don't want that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good. I'm fine. That's when those two individuals disappear. I think we'll think bourbon's probably moved on.
Yeah.
You'll probably see a good decline in the secondary market as well, but I think that will probably hang on quite a bit longer than anything else because there's definitely going to be people that are seeking bottles that just can't find them.
Sure.
Especially like the Blanton's dump dates and stuff. People go nuts over those.
Sorry, I'm just seeing how long we've been recording so far. I have got 2 questions left. How many questions do you have left?
I've actually gone through all of the ones on here.
Okay.
There's some extra ones on Adams, actually. but one of them we kind of already answered. It was what bourbon best pairs with a beach vacation.
Oh, yeah.
So the summer cocktails, and then he also said thoughts on the new Tennessee legal case for Total Wine. Phone in Sarah Ritter.
Good. That it was a good decision by Tennessee on their part. Basically, for those, and I'm probably going to butcher a little bit of this, but basically, what you are seeing is that people were trying to open liquor stores, even though they hadn't been there longer than 2 years. Which up until really today was the minimum amount of time that you had to be there before you could open a store. So there was this whole debacle with Total Wine in the state of Tennessee, and then some smaller folks too that were trying to open a store, but they couldn't and everything. So Tennessee ruled in favor of those who were trying to open a store. I think it's a good move. Brings more commerce to the to the state and everything.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's my very quick hot take on the Tennessee legal system right now.
So I do have one other question, but it's the typical, what are the 4 to 5 best whiskeys and scotches everyone should have ready?
I don't know about scotches.
Yeah, so I can tell you that, we get asked this question a lot, but if you hear us repeat stuff like Elijah Craig, Wilderness Trail,
Turkey 101,
those are definitely backbar stuff you should definitely have all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, I try to have a range of things from lower proof to higher proof, just for people, because I mean, you never know who's going to show up. It may be, they like their bourbon, but they don't like anything over 80 proof, or they want something that they can mix with Coke. Jim Beam's a good one to have around for that kind of thing. But if you've got somebody who's coming over who's I wouldn't say seasoned drinker necessarily, but I mean, they have a little bit more experience.
Mm-hmm. Texas.
I was thinking about that the other day. Taxes! Oh, Patreon, you have stuff coming to you. Anyway. What are we talking about?
4 to 5 best whiskeys you'd keep behind your bar.
Yeah. You should have something a little bit higher proof for those people too. So anyway, I will now go to my last couple of questions. The first one is from Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue. Outside of bourbon, what's your go-to drink?
Alcoholic or not?
I don't know. He didn't specify.
Alcoholic, if I had to go with something outside, it would probably be rum or vodka if I don't want to remember that night.
It's no longer Fireball for Swan.
Yeah, so pretty much just crappily flavored vodka I go with. That's the thing. I don't really drink and enjoy and sip on anything outside of it. I can get into some rum. If I had to pick just trying like the Nika, I would probably sip on some sort of not superly like heavily peated scotch. I could probably handle but if I'm just looking for something I enjoy, it's hard for me to get out of the wheelhouse. I mean, you got to think I'm some kid that grew up in Frankfurt right down the road from Buffalo Trace. So from the time that I can walk, I'm like, oh, the entire town smells funny. And it's like, oh, that's MASH. So the second you have a sip of bourbon, it's like it just feels like home, you know? And so when I try to venture out into different spirits, I don't get that resounding like comfort.
I want to point something out. He did say outside of bourbon.
Yeah.
Not outside of bourbon and rye.
That's true.
I would take rye. I mean,
rye, yeah.
Rye is a go-to for me. Beer's a go-to for me as well. I've just recently started getting back into... Swan doesn't like beer. I've just really recently started getting back into beer. Not after a hiatus, just kind of like I spent so much time with bourbon, and now I've realized that there's a lot of really good beer out there, which isn't for Swan.
Yeah,
But,
you know what I think would be something I would try? There's a lot of people now that are doing beer distilling, and they will actually make like their mash bill out of their same beer.
Yeah.
Like, what was it, mash, I guess?
Yeah,
Still?
it's still mash.
Yeah, so they're doing that. So there's like a hoppy whiskey. That's strange, but I feel like I could get behind that. And most of them are just titled American whiskeys because they can't necessarily call them bourbon.
Right.
But I think I would try that more so than beer. Because to me, beer is just like a giant soggy pretzel. I just can't do it.
Maybe you just haven't had the right beer, Swan.
See, this is what happens with coffee as well.
and with bourbon and
people pull
with
you in.
Everything.
Yeah, so there's this little
But
place.
you've never had my mom's meatloaf.
Yeah, but you never. I swear, man. So the other day, this guy was super nice. I went to Kentucky Knows Coffee. I've told you about this guy.
Yeah,
he did a 30-minute spill about, like this and that, and what he does in his company, and he was specifically telling me that I should try this like bourbon ball coffee that he has, and to stir it clockwise and then counterclockwise, and then mix it up, and that he was going to put X amount of cream and sugar in there for me to try it. Admittedly, it was the best coffee I've ever had. So if you're in Frankfurt, definitely go try it.
But this is from a non-coffee drinker,
yeah,
though, so
definitely go try it.
It's pretty funny.
It's right next to Buffalo Trace. It's called Kentucky Knows Coffee. The guy's great, but I just can't do it. They do the same thing with coffee. They're like, oh, well, there's not a huge coffee flavor in it. And if you're not a coffee fan, the second you take a sip of whatever doesn't taste like coffee, it sticks out.
Yeah.
And it's the same with tea for me. It's the same with beer.
And there are so many people who are that way with bourbon. My wife is one of them.
Yeah.
She's like, I just don't like it. But, you give her a mixed drink and she's like, oh, I can taste the bourbon in there. I'm like, really?
Yeah. And
It's 80 proof.
everyone tries to convert you too.
Uh-huh.
They're just like, oh, but you've not had my beer. You've not had my.
That's the meatloaf metaphor that I was throwing in there too. I just don't like meatloaf, man. Nobody's meatloaf is going to convince me that I like meatloaf.
You're never going to look at it like, oh, you slathered in ketchup. Neat.
Anyway, final question for this episode is from KYBBLF. How long is bourbon good for after opening the bottle? That's a very... There are a lot of factors that go into answering that question.
So I would recommend trying an experiment. I've had a bottle. It was one of the first ones I bought. It was the E.H. Taylor. And I've bought 2 or 3 other bottles since, and I've opened and finished them, but I still have that one that's been open the entire time. That's my barometer. So if that one starts feeling sour, then I'm immediately like, let's go through my post and find out what I bought first and what I need to be drinking to get rid of. That's one way to do it, but honestly, it seems like the big thing is the less you have in the bottle, the quicker you need to drink it to get rid of it, because it will kind of go bad quickly. If you put it in a cold, room temperature or colder place with no direct sunlight, it lasts a good while. You really don't have a whole lot to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how you store it.
Yeah.
As long as it's not in direct sunlight, as long as it's at least room temperature, I think that's the maybe the biggest factor. But that doesn't mean that there isn't oxidation. Oxidation, thank you. I almost said oxidization. I was like, that's wrong. That doesn't mean that it won't get oxidized as it sits there over time. Because it will. I mean, that is just the nature of, of whiskey. But I think that as long as you keep it in a pretty, well-controlled environment, it's going to be okay for a while.
Yeah, I think another big point, and I've seen Perry make this mistake with 2 specific bottles, and it's nothing he did, but...
Where are we going with this one?
If you have Wild Turkey that's of age, and you have Elijah Craig that's of age...
Oh, snap, yeah.
Take the bottle, and every once in a while, turn it upside down and right side up a few times, just kind of get the cork wet a little bit, and then put it back in your cabinet. Just every 6 months or so. because they tend to disintegrate and get dried out, and then you get these nice chunks of cork all
and then
through
you
there.
gotta get cheesecloth, and you gotta filter it, and maybe it didn't all come out in the first time that you filtered it, and then you gotta filter it again. And you're like, is it really worth it at this point? And you decide, yes, it is worth it at this point. So then you filter it for a third time, and there's still chunks of cork in it. How is there still chunks of cork in it? And then you're like, well, maybe I can live with it. And you're like, no, I'm a perfectionist. I gotta filter it again. And then you filter it again, and maybe it works. Sometimes there's a little bit of cork still left in there, and you decide, I'm okay with this. And then one night you wake up and it's not okay, and you filter it again.
So as you can tell, this has never happened to Perry before.
What's not happened to me?
Trauma. Sounds like trauma. Just specific corks to it. Wild Turkey's bad about it, but a lot of people are moving to like the synthetic cork, which
I don't mind. Honestly, don't mind.
people really get upset about that. I think it's great because at least
For
I know.
what reason?
Yeah, because it's not real, Perry. It's not authentic. It's not how they did it before. I don't know, man. I like the idea that I don't have to take my entire collection and turn it upside down every 6 months.
I mean, here's the thing. I understand why people feel that way because bourbon is built on heritage.
Yeah.
But, like, get with the times.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
Or don't, whatever. I don't care.
Go to a thrift store and look through their bourbon stuff, and you'll find tons of decanters. Just random decanters. And you'll open them up, and you're like, is there
still
bourbon
smell
in
like
there?
bourbon in there.
No, there's no bourbon in there. But look at the cork. That thing is mangled.
Yeah, it's not good.
Every time.
Not good.
It's okay to change. We can have synthetic corks.
What was the original question?
I don't know. We're really upset about. Oh, it was basically how to store your bourbon. Is what they were asking.
That's right. Anyway, thank you guys so much for submitting your questions. If you have future ones that you would like to hear read out on the show, you can send us an email to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com, or you can find the show on all social media channels at MyBourbonPod. Swan, how about we move on to a review?
Yeah, let's do that.
You suggested this one.
Yeah, so it came up too in Monica's question about what 3 things should you have in the bar. For both of us, I think Larceny's up there. Larceny is one of those that I recommend to people when they don't like bourbon. So kind of going back to my coffee thing. Just because I feel like it's approachable and friendly and maybe not as harsh as Maker's Mark, which is
Friendly's a good one.
Yeah. And Weeders, I think, are good introductions for people, unless that are about 90 proof. So if you get like an 80 proof regular bourbon, I feel like that's a good intro. But I think you can go a little bit higher in proof if you're doing a Weeder.
Yeah, and this is 92 proof, so it's not that far off. But here's something interesting about this bourbon. I went through a period where I tasted it. I just straight up did not like it.
I did the same thing.
Did you really?
Exact same thing.
You are now the third person, counting me, to have said that. My
So-
mom is going through it right now, too.
When I first had it, I really liked it. And then probably about, I don't know, maybe the third bottle I had of this, I just really didn't think it was that great. It didn't it hit me as harsh. It didn't really, I don't know. It was so displeasing. I didn't buy another bottle for a long time.
It tasted like, if I remember correctly, it tasted really young and really harsh.
But to me, it was almost like it had taken on a nail polish remover aspect that it didn't necessarily have before, but it wasn't super harsh. It was just flavored like that to me.
Like it had been finished in nail polish remover?
Yeah. Nail polish remover casks.
Oh.
Okay. No, that's gross. But I just didn't like it. Like the ethanol just hit super heavy, and it still drank kind of like a 92 proof, but it just hit really heavy.
But I was going from finding sweet notes and really good dark sugar notes to it just being corny and just not liking it. I don't know what it is about this bourbon where now multiple people have said, yeah, I went through that. And it really took me, I would say, probably about 6 months to break out of that funk.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it could be just the same thing with like Woodford. When you start, you're like, this is the best thing I've ever had. And then 2 to 3 months into drinking it, you're like, well, this is not very nuanced and there's plenty of other better stuff out there. And then I guess you go back to it after a while and you can actually pick up on that nuance and stuff. And it does have more to it. And being accustomed to, 110 to 130 proof bourbon, maybe I'm looking way past that harshness that I saw before. But to me, every time I've introduced somebody and I was like, we're going to have Weller or Larceny. And I say Larceny because I feel like it's easier for people to get on their bar.
Yeah.
I think they're great introductions.
Yeah, and I'm currently spending a good deal of time on the nose on this one.
I'm trying to find the note specifically that you pointed out, corny and nail polish remover. I feel like if you really wanted to, you could find those notes in there. But it's buried deep between some really nice baking spice stuff.
Yeah, I think that now we would think of, oh, maybe it's nail polish remover. I think that's the alcohol that's coming through.
Yeah.
Or the ethanol more specifically. But yeah, it gets really well nestled between, there's a orange spice note that I'm picking up on the nose. The brown sugar really comes through for me. There's almost and it's so specific, but like a white rice characteristic that I kind of pick up on the nose too. Like steamed white rice.
I'm not really getting that so much as I'm getting almost like a dusty corn. I don't know. Maybe like, I don't know.
Corn before it's been cooked.
Yeah.
Before, like corn on the cob before you've cooked it
or
to
even
eat
like
off
that,
the cob.
almost like that dried corn even. Like,
For squirrels?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that.
I would say that the nose is probably my least favorite part of this bourbon. Not that it's bad. It's just
That's
not as
true.
good.
But I also think that then that's another reason why this is good for beginners, because there's not many people that when I hand them their first glass of bourbon, they don't do exactly what Dane did with the Pappy. They shoot it. I mean, So if you're looking for something where it's like they're trying to get minimal amount of flavor but still have that bourbon kick, this has got it. They skip the nose portion entirely. And if that's the weak point, then they're skipping the weak point. That's great.
All right. So I've apparently been associating bourbons with foods tonight. Frosted Cheerios.
It's a look of approval, people. Yeah, it's
That's exactly what it is on the palate.
it's like it's a Frosted Cheerios for sure. That's so strange.
Why is this where I've gone with my tasting notes?
I don't know. Good luck putting that on the back of the bottle. If they ever let you do tasting notes, Frosted Cheerios. No, So going back to what I think you had told me Dixon had said, this has a complete absence of rye. That's how I kind of pick up on it as a weeder.
Yeah, it is dry.
Yeah.
It's definitely dry. Not that it's overpoweringly so, but it's not presenting the flavors on the front of the palate that a rye bourbon typically does.
Yeah, it's got that absence, which is, I think, a reason why maybe I pick up on some of the corn in the nose so much is because it's got the wheat's not as strong, really.
Yeah.
So it's got a really heavy presence of corn, and so the Old Fitz releases the decanter stuff. Apparently, they're using Larceny now, right?
Well, I mean, it's a wheated distillate, so
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the age has done this well, but this is still a very good entry point into wheated product from Heaven Hill.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think this is friendlier than Makers, because every time I've had Makers, Chad gets a headache. I don't necessarily get a headache, but I definitely get a punch. It's definitely a little...
It's hotter.
Yeah, it's hot.
For some strange reason. I mean, it shouldn't be that hot at 90 proof and being a wheater.
Yeah, it's like a Red Hot almost to me, which fits with their branding. Don't get me wrong, but it's just it's spicy. So that's why I kind of when people are asking to what to start with, I tend to lean this because it does have that kind of almost Elijah Craig type deal where it's got a little bit of baking spice hidden in there. The like slight cinnamon, but not overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's and apparently Cheerios,
Frosted Cheerios.
Frosted
Get it right.
Cheerios.
Come on, Swan.
But it's definitely it's good. I honestly, this is one that I consistently look over on the shelf, and I need to pick up a bottle.
I am about done with this bottle, and I'm probably picking it up this week. Honestly, there's to me no reason not to have this on your back bar. For people who say, "Oh, I love Makers," or "I love Weller, but I can't find it anymore," and it's like this is a really great alternative. Honestly, and I haven't done them blind. I would love to do them blind. I enjoy this more, and I seem to get more out of this than I do Weller Special Reserve.
I feel like this is less harsh than Weller Special Reserve.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I think I do enjoy the flavor profile of Weller Special Reserve more. I don't know.
I need to do them blind.
Yeah.
I would like to do a weeded blind flight.
Oh, we'll break out the Lazy Susan, man. We can do that.
Great.
We can get that out. We can do this. We can do Makers, and we can do Weller Special Reserve all in one. Just spin it around. Let you pick one.
Bourbon's flying everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, I got a quarter of an ounce left in this glass, and it smells like, oh, that's air that I'm getting on that nose.
Yeah, we aerated the bourbons.
Yeah. We haven't talked a whole lot about the finish. I like the finish quite a bit.
The finish is good. It is not long. It would be kind of a medium to short finish.
I would actually err more towards medium.
Yeah.
That's where I tend to get more of the sweet notes. That's where a honey note kind of comes out as well. Maybe more like honeysuckle, actually, now that I really think about it. There's nothing dark about this bourbon, except for maybe like a brown sugar note. But even then, it's not like it's complementing everything else really well.
Yeah.
I think that this is, if you are trying to, I agree with what you said earlier. If you're trying to get somebody into drinking bourbon, this is maybe a top 3 for me. Just to present to them and say, here's where we're going. Mm-hmm. Here's where you could go. So,
Absolutely.
well, do you want to jump into the actual review portion of it there, Swan?
Yeah.
All right, so we have a review system of nose, palate, finish, and price. Each category is out of 5, and then we total everything up for a score out of 20. I would give the nose on this a 2.
I would probably give it about a 2.5. I think it's good, but it's definitely the weak point of this.
It smells younger than it tastes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is why I'm a little off put by the nose. I don't hate it, but at the same time, if I were judging on nose alone, it wouldn't be a winning score.
No.
That's why I settled on the 2.
Which I think that might even be a theme for me with Weeders. I tend to like the palate and the finish more.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think the rye spice is so instrumental to a good nose a lot of times. Just because I really pick that out more than anything else. That when there's none of that there and it's kind of an absence, the corn sticks through. I mean, I took a smell of this and immediately was like, oh no, it's that Dickel again. But it's definitely not as pungent, one, and then 2, it's not, it's not
Ooh.
awful.
Sorry, I just picked up some peanut flavor on the palate too, but I did a massive Kentucky Chew.
Let me go for that then.
So, palate, I'm going to give it 3.5. I think that this is one of the best value bourbon palates out there. Again, I know that, we were saying we went through this weird period where it was like, I don't know about this, maybe I shouldn't be drinking it, but like this is honestly one of the best palates out there for the budget
Yeah.
bourbons. 3.5 is, it of course is not a resounding yes, but I think that it's a pretty good indication of this is good stuff. You need to consider it for sure.
Yeah, I would give it a 3. I think the only thing that's keeping me back from it is I feel like I get this more on Weller Special Reserve. I definitely don't get this on Makers. So one of my favorite desserts is definitely a pecan pie. I want more of like that like dark Karo syrup flavor, and it's got just a little bit of that. I want more.
I see that.
So that's why like when they do the special releases of like the barrel proof, I feel like it'd be something in my wheelhouse because I get that off Elijah Craig.
Yeah.
A lot of them. And I want more of that. So I think I'd give it a 3. Again, pretty good. And for the price, amazing.
Finish, that's actually a 3 for me. I think that it has a lot going for it, but it doesn't quite push it over the edge to be great or close to amazing. I think that it's just got enough where I'm like, yeah, there's something else there. It's good. I enjoy what else is there, but I'm not like jumping for joy over it.
Yeah, and I think also just going back to the whole trend thing, I feel like we typically give the higher proof stuff better finishes, which is fine. I mean, we look for that Kentucky Hug. That's okay. Intro bourbon doesn't have to be perfect, and this definitely isn't, but it's a strong introduction. I'd also give it probably a 3. I think it'd be right around a 3. It's I need a bottle. I think that's
I've got to get another. I'm gonna get another this week. I might get a handle.
Really?
I've never gotten a handle of this before. Good chance that that's gonna wind up happening.
It looks like this is gonna be nerdy, but it looks like something like the front package of it looks like something out of Zelda.
Oh, it really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I feel like I need one of the skeleton keys or something.
Now I can't unsee that. I think I'm gonna be playing some Legend of Zelda after you leave, Swan.
That's perfectly fine. Get after it, man.
Price is $24. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
4.5.
Wow.
4.5.
Okay.
When you said you think this is one of the better deals in bourbon, I think this is a fantastic deal in bourbon.
That's fair, man.
I know this shouldn't factor into it, but availability is factoring into this.
No, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't you factor availability into the price?
This has no secondary market. Nobody's looking for this on secondary.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah. Because everyone's got it in their store.
I'll give you $75 for a $7.50 of Larceny.
So this,
okay.
Yeah, so this is like earlier, we have a Facebook group, as we mentioned before, and I asked everyone to take pictures of their shelves. If you go back and look at all those pictures, there's very few bourbons that are in common. There's a lot of local stuff. There's a lot of makers. There's a lot of holes where Buffalo Trace should be.
Yeah.
There's that kind of stuff. They've got Larceny. They've got it. It's there. I mean, it is absolutely everywhere because Heaven Hill is great with making sure that their products are pushed out and available constantly.
You know what we should do? And we've reviewed Special Reserve on the show before, but it would be interesting to do like a series of reviews that are just budget wheated bourbons or affordable wheated bourbons. I mean, we could, even just throw Old Fitz in there. Makers for sure we could review as well. But that I think that would be something we could explore here in the future. But let's see. I gave it a 12.5 out of 20.
Hold on. I think I gave it a 2.5, 3.5, or no, that was 3, and then 3.5 and 4.5.
No, you gave the finish a 3 as well.
3? Okay.
8, 12.5. So, same score.
Yeah, relatively the same score, yeah.
Yeah, so you wound up with the 12.5 as well. And I consider that in this instance a recommendation because I don't see another wheated bourbon out there that is of this quality.
No, I don't.
That is
That you
in this
get.
in this category. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's good. Man, I really need to start keeping score on my phone. I feel like I messed something up. But no,
I got you covered.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, if you hit that point where you're like, well, I tried Larceny and I didn't like it. Obviously, we both hit that point with this, and we came back to it. Go back and get a bottle. I mean, the only other thing I can think of that's a weeder that's close to this, as far as like how much I like it, is what is that one? The Stitzel-Weller one they're putting out with a key on it. No. It's Blade and Bow.
Oh, okay.
Blade and Bow.
I thought you were talking about Larceny for a second. I was like, dude.
No, I'm good.
I thought Blade and Bow was a rye whiskey or rye bourbon, rather.
I don't know. I was wanting to say it was weeded. Either way, but like
I guess I'll have to look into it.
they're putting a lot of stuff out that's in that $50 price range that is weeded, and I'd take this over it. And the barrel proof is great. From what I've heard, I've not actually had it, but I mean, if you wanted a barrel proof and you really liked weeders, I'd probably move back to Makers for their Makers barrel proof. But just as far as introductions, this is great.
Yeah, and we'll talk about like Maker's 46 and everything in due time. But I say buy a bottle of this. I know it wasn't the most glowing of reviews, but I think that this is...
I think it speaks volumes for the actual price you're paying for it.
Yeah, I do too. I think this belongs on your bar. Mm-hmm. It belongs on your home. So, yeah, go buy Larceny. How about Tips and Bits?
Oh, man, I didn't think of any of these.
This is our recommendation segment of the podcast. If you're a new listener to the show, we recommend anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be bourbon related, but yeah, Tips and Bits. Do you want me to go first?
Absolutely, because I'm drawing a blank right now.
So our friend Clifton, who submitted a question to the show earlier, he recently did a live stream where he was drinking bourbon and playing Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo, and it got me all excited to play old video games again. So I ordered a controller off of Amazon, which is where you actually order things from, not Instagram. It's from a company called 8-Bit Do, so number 8, BITDO. It's like an old Super Nintendo controller, but it still has the joysticks on it, so it's not locked into being like the old analog controllers. You can actually play some more recent consoles with it as well. I am a big nerd, and I recommend things like comic books and comic book movies, and now apparently video game stuff. But I have enjoyed the crap out of having this controller, and not only does it have that like vintage feel, and I mean, I grew up playing the Super Nintendo. That was my first game console. So I still have that feeling of it, but say I want to jump over to the Nintendo 64, I want to jump even as far as like the Wii or the PlayStation 2, I can do that because the controller has everything available for that. So go buy a controller from 8-Bit Do.
I got one.
Okay.
You ready? This is a movie I recommended to you earlier, but...
Oh, yeah.
All right, so The Terminal.
Yes.
With Tom Hanks.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Flies under the radar for a lot of people. Very, very heartwarming, fantastic Tom Hanks movie.
Will it make you cry?
It will get you very close to crying. I don't know if it'll necessarily make you cry.
I don't know how much crying I want to do, Swan.
Well, I'm not going to sit over here and tell you to go watch X-Men because we saw the reviews on that. So, definitely The Terminal. It's pretty good. It's one of those movies I catch myself watching like twice a year for no reason. Like,
oh yeah,
I know exactly what's going to happen every time, but it's a great watch, and resonating with your video game thing. E3 this year, amazing.
E3 had some really good announcements.
It did, and Xbox and Nintendo stole the show.
Yeah, Nintendo is poised to have maybe their biggest year.
Yeah, didn't they say Mario Kart's coming to the iPhones?
Yes, it is.
Oh, well, This is my bourbon podcast, and we're gonna end this now because we're going to play Mario.
We're going
Kart.
to play Mario Kart right now.
I can't wait. It's gonna get stupid competitive.
Yeah, it's.
My bathroom time's gonna be crazy now.
We should do sometime like a theme tips and bits where it's like, oh, these are my top 5 movies that I always go back to.
For sure, I did that one with the albums. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be something kind of interesting, so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, that'd be
tips
neat.
and bits.
I'm all for that.
Yeah. But we won't do that tonight because we do have to get off of here so that you good folks can go on to your daily lives and we can go on to drink some more bourbon, and I'm probably going to go play some video games.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much for listening. This has been a really, really fun episode. I've enjoyed this one a whole lot. I'd like to start doing these more, maybe like, once a quarter, once every couple of months, something like that, just to get you guys more involved with the show and everything. But yeah, it's been fun. Swan, where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram at mybourbonfinder. So give me a follow there. And then also our Facebook group, which Perry will mention, has been awesome. You guys are super interactive.
So much fun recently.
Yeah, if you definitely join that.
Yeah, you can search This Is My Bourbon Group on Facebook if you'd like to become a part of that. Again, you have a couple questions to answer just to become a part of it, and, you'll see when you get there. It's no big deal. If you want to follow me, I am at britter1492 on all social media channels. The show on all social media channels is at My Bourbon Pod. Please give us a follow there. We love hearing from you. If you would like to communicate with us, that is a great way to do it. You can send us questions or comments to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. I would really like to start doing like a correspondence section, like a letters theme.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we could maybe do that in the future. Let's see what else. Give us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes. That really does help out the show, get more people seeing this show and potentially listening, depending on, if they want to listen to it as well. I haven't rambled in a long time. I'm rambling tonight.
Just a little bit. It's all good.
Bourbonshop.threadless.com is where you can find all of our apparel and merch. We will be having a sale here coming very, very soon, so stay tuned for that. Every Thursday night over on YouTube, I do a live stream. You can head to youtube.com/thisismybourbonpodcast. A lot of fun hanging out with the folks over there, so please tune into that. I would love to see you guys over there. And then finally, you can head to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a patron of the show. There is absolutely 100% no pressure for you to support the show financially, but it really, really does help us out. There's a lot of time and effort and energy that goes into making this show possible every single week, and seeing the support from you guys, not just on Patreon, but in general, is a huge encouragement for me and for us. So if you feel inclined to do so, if you are able to do so, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast again is where you can become a patron of the show. Swan, thanks so much for sitting in this week, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. When are we gonna hang this deer up, man? Because it's been staring at me for like an hour.
He's sitting in the corner forever.
He's chilling. It's all right. Hey, buddy.
Well, I will see you next week. Thank you all again so much for listening. Until next time, I'm Perry.
And I'm Swan.
And this is my Bourbon Podcast. Also, that deer, he's kind of got his tongue hanging out a little bit.
Oh, that's all good. That's how he went. He's just making sure people know.
Later, suckers.
You haven't seen the last of me.
He gets shot and he's going...
That's just one last thing. Is he's just like, I'm gonna have my tongue out for eternity. I'm gonna be up on somebody's wall, just doing that.